Julie Pearson Little Thunder. Today is Monday, February 6, 2017, and I'm interviewing Leslie Deer on behalf of the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at Oklahoma State University. Leslie, you're a recent graduate of OSU, a contemporary fashion designer and clothing maker. You also work at Citizen Potawatomi Nation Cultural Heritage Center here in Shawnee, Oklahoma, and that's where we're interviewing today. You're a Muskogee Creek tribal member. Your design work is heavily influenced by Southeastern motifs and worldviews. And you just had this great fashion show at the OSU Museum, which I got to watch. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
Thank you. It's an honor to do this. I'm excited.
Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Oakland, California in the 1960s, and I grew up in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, Northern California, until about the age of 18. And then my family relocated to Oklahoma. We moved to Shawnee, and so I've been most of the time in Oklahoma ever since.
What did your mother and father do for a living?
Oh, gosh. Well, I have a father and I have a stepfather. So my father is Italian. He's non-native. My mother met him as a result of the government's, I guess I would say the government's assimilation program, where my mother was taken away from her family when she was 5 and put in boarding schools, and then she went to commercial school after high school, which I guess is the same thing as like a vocational school. And then she was put into the relocation program, and she said they told her, you get to pick a big city and we'll send you there. So she chose San Francisco, and that's where she met my father, who is full-blood Italian. So that is my father, my biological father. And then I also had a stepfather. His name was Vernon Ketchishano. He was full-blood Kickapoo from here in Oklahoma. And that's mainly why we relocated to Shawnee, Oklahoma. Was because my stepfather was going to work for his tribe. He worked with the Indian Child Welfare Program for his tribe. And prior to that, he was a professor at San Francisco State University. And my mother worked for different Indian programs. It's not JOM, but I think it was called something else before JOM back in like the 70s. I can't remember right now what it was called. But some of those kind of programs, she served as the chairman of the board of directors for the Intertribal Friendship House in Oakland, California, and was just active in a lot of different Native American community type things.
And how about your relationship with your grandparents on either side growing up?
My father, my biological father's parents were both Italian citizens. They both came to the United States as children, and neither one of them spoke English. And my mother's parents were both full-blood Creek from Eufaula, Oklahoma, and neither one of them, they spoke a few words, just a little bit, enough to get by, I think, but they primarily spoke the Muskogee language as well. So I didn't get to interact with them probably as much as I would have liked to. And they all unfortunately passed away by the time I was 12 years old. So I didn't get to interact a lot with my Creek grandparents because we lived in California, and we would just come to visit in Oklahoma in the summertime, just for maybe a few days during the summer. And then, you know, my Italian grandparents, I did get to spend time with them, but again, it would, you know, I'd play with my cousins and things like that.
Any siblings?
I do. I have one younger brother. His name is Gino Barrichello, and he pronounces it that way. He prefers the Italian pronunciation. And then I also have two stepbrothers, Jay Ketchishano and Jeffrey Ketchishano.
So you mentioned this, you know, growing up in this urban Indian background that you grew up in. Can you talk a little bit about some of the pluses of that environment in terms of creativity, and then maybe some of the, you know, minuses as well?
Yeah, it was really interesting growing up in an urban area in the 1960s because there were lots of other Native people that had been relocated to the San Francisco Bay Area as well. There were just all kinds of different tribes. People from all over the United States were there. And Indians will always find Indians, and we had a big, strong Native community there. We had the Intertribal Friendship House, which is a community center, And there were a lot of events that took place there, a lot of dinners, a lot of powwows, a lot of gatherings, a lot of guest speakers would come through there. And as a result of being around all those Native people, I got to see all of their traditional regalia and learn some of their ways and hear words from their language. And it was really very interesting to me to see the difference between all the different tribes. When we had powwows, I remember being able to identify people were from different parts of the country by what they wore, or what their regalia was made out of, or what kind of designs and motifs they had on there. And I thought it was all just completely fascinating to see the differences, the way that they wore their hair, and everything was completely different from tribe to tribe. And, we still do have some of that now, but I think it's kind of all, people belong to many different tribes now, and so we have a little of this tribe and a little of that tribe, and it's not always as obvious, But I do remember that, and that was an exciting experience, as well as I think just being in a big city, it has its own unique inspirations from it as well, the sounds, the lights, the different cultures outside of just Native culture, just all of the different cultures that are there in the Bay Area. It was really interesting to take it all in as a young person.
And also, as you mentioned, your mom was involved with a lot of community organizations, and some that it was a really powerful time in terms of Native activism and things. How did that influence your outlook?
That, there were a lot of things going on. I got to participate in the occupation of Alcatraz Island. I was just young. My brother and I were both very young, but our mom did take us out there for day trips. We'd get right out on the boat and, sit out there, and during the day, and they'd have powwows, and we would dance, or we would listen to different people speak and things like that. And it really made a huge impression on me. It's the first time I think that I probably realized that Native people were treated so much differently. That was what that was all about, was drawing attention to Native rights and Native issues. And I was still quite young, but starting to become aware that Indian people maybe weren't treated the same sometimes. So that did have an influence on me. It's when I started to learn about my mother and how she was taken away from her family, and that it was all a result of the government's programs, that she couldn't speak her language, and she didn't have that to pass on to us. And so, not all of that hit me at once when I was a child, but, it was the beginning of that. And so it had a huge impact on me, and it's something that I still think about probably every day.
Did you have many family members or extended family members who influenced your interest in art?
I think so. Along the way, there were a lot of different people. I know that I remember one time when I was about 12 years old, my parents wanted to go up to Northern California to visit some friends, and my brother and I were just again, being kind of young, didn't have anything to do all day. We were out in the woods near the redwoods, and being city kids, we were like, what are we going to do here? So I know that one of the ladies who was a friend of my mother's took me aside and said, I'm going to teach you how to bead, and she taught me how to bead peyote stitch, and I was just thrilled with that. And then you couldn't take me away from the beads. For several years after that, I was beading everything peyote stitch. I was making earrings for my mom, for her friends, for everybody, and it was one of my favorite things to do. So
and how old were you?
I was 12 at the time, so I do remember that was one good experience. And then also extended family. One of my stepfather's relatives had her own business. She had a fabric shop, and she had sewn for many years. And when I was older and needed to start making more dance regalia, I went to her to have her help me first to make my regalia for me. And then later on to help me when I decided to start trying to make my own regalia. Another thing that really had a big impact on me that I didn't really realize at the time was when I was here in Shawnee, Oklahoma, in this community. The Sac and Fox tribe is close proximity here. This is part of their territory as well. And there were two Sac and Fox elder women. Their names were Viola Spoon and Sarah Franklin, and they were teaching an applique class. And my brother actually worked for the Sac and Fox tribe, and he had written a grant to have them teach this class. And so he had asked my mother and I to come and participate in the class, and I really was not interested. And I didn't want to go, and he said, please just come for a little while. You know, it's open to the public. Just come and sit in and listen, and then you can leave. So my mother and I came, and those women were just very gracious and very generous in what they had to share. And I found it fun, you know, and I really enjoyed it, learning how to make the templates and to trace the designs and to apply them to different garments. And I remember asking them, I said, you know, I'm not your tribe though, so is it okay for me to do this? And they said, you're not from our tribe, but you're the one who's here, and so you're the one who's going to learn it, and so you're the one who's going to be able to carry it on, and don't let it die out. Make sure that you share this and keep it going. So I left the class and knowing how to do a little bit of applique, and thought, well, okay, maybe I'll do that again someday, and I put it up on the shelf. So, and it stayed there for a long time.
And you were over 18, you were around...
I was, yeah. I think I was probably in my 20s then, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was before I had joined the American Indian Dance Theater or any of those kind of things, and so it sat on the shelf for a little while before I came back to it.
Okay, we want to talk about that in a minute, but in terms of, did you enjoy drawing as well? It sounds like you were definitely attracted to three-dimensional work.
I
Pretty
think
young,
so.
too.
You know, I didn't think that I could draw, so I never really tried to, because it's like, oh no, I'm not good at that, I'm not going to try that. You know, I had an art class in high school, and I used to dread the drawing part. I would just sit there and look like I was working and then erase it, and then when the teacher would walk by, look like I was working and then erase it. When we got to working with clay, I enjoyed that a little bit better, but you know, it was not my favorite thing to do. And the same with sewing. Oddly enough, I had the home ec class in high school, and the part of the semester where we got to sewing, I didn't enjoy it, and I don't really remember why. I don't know if I had a hard time threading my sewing machines, or, you know, had the bobbin threads all messed up, or what it was, but I remember just not enjoying it. And we worked on a couple of projects in that class, and I never finished them. Throughout the whole time that we had sewing, I would start the projects and never finish them. And I remember my teachers telling me that, you know, they came by and said, look, you have hidden talent. Look at these pin tucks. These are just perfect. You have hidden talent. And I just could care less. I was like, whatever, you know, and I couldn't wait to get out of class. I mean, I'd watch the clock and think, can we leave yet? And when that class was over, I literally said, I'm never touching another sewing machine as long as I live. And so it's really kind of silly now that I went back to school to work on that some more. So here I am.
And unusual, because usually if you're very good at something, you also enjoy it.
Yeah, and I do now, but back then I just really didn't for some reason. So it's kind of odd that I circled back around to it.
So when you were powwow dancing, were you contesting, and what categories did you?
I did when I was younger, when we moved to Oklahoma, and before that I danced Southern cloth, I guess, you know. I wore like a Southern style dress. I wore my traditional Creek clothes as well. And then I have an extended family relative who is Comanche, who dressed me in Comanche clothes. And so I danced Southern cloth for many years, and I enjoyed doing that. And then later on I had to learn how to fancy shawl dance. So, so that was interesting.
Well, so you've come back to Oklahoma, you finished high school, did you start working afterwards? Were you looking at college? How did it happen?
I just finished high school and was enjoying my summer when my mom woke me up one morning and said, we're moving to Oklahoma. And because school starts sooner in Oklahoma than it does in California, college starts back there next week. So we're going to put you on a plane and we're going to send you to Bacone, and we've already called them and they're going to take you, and everything will be fine. So I thought I still had half a summer left, and I was on my way to Tulsa. So I went to Bacone for 2 years, you know, and there are a lot of great artists that came through Bacone, a lot of great art professors there, and I did have art class there. And again, I just kind of poked my way through it, and left Bacone and went to the University of Oklahoma on a junior college merit scholarship. One of my professors had nominated me.
And what were your interests at that point, since they weren't art?
You know, gosh, I don't even remember. I think I tried a little bit of everything. I think I had tried taking some accounting courses, just general business courses, and I really still did not have any idea what it was I wanted to do. I was just kind of drifting through. And I got to OU, and so I signed up for business courses and thought, well, I'll just get a degree in business administration. That can apply to a lot of things. And I actually did graduate there with a degree in public administration, which combined business, management, economics, and political science. So I had decided by the end of that I was going to go to law school. So I just wanted a degree so I could go to law school. I wanted to study environmental law. So this was back in the early 80s, and I wanted to study environmental law. So I thought that's what I was going to do. So after I graduated from the University of Oklahoma, I moved back to California. I went back out there for a summer and got a job. I took the first job I could find, which was clerical work, which is things that I had done on and off through college. And so I got a clerical job working in San Francisco, and I thought that was going to be that. But there was a friend of our family's who had a Native American radio show on a KPFA public radio station out in Berkeley, California, and invited me to come on as a guest. And somehow that turned into asking me to be a co-host on the show, and which I was like, yeah, sure.
Wow.
You know, I thought, oh, this isn't serious. I don't really have to do this. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. So I got a call one morning and was told, meet me at this auditorium. We're going to go watch a dance company. And I was like, no, really, I'm tired this morning. I'll just skip it. No, you've got to go. Got to meet me there.
And it was part of the radio show.
It was for the radio program.
Right.
We were going to go do some interviews. We were going to watch this dance company and then go do some interviews afterwards. So I went to the auditorium, got my press pass, went in, and got to watch American Indian Dance Theater, which completely blew me away. I think they were probably only in about their second year of touring at that time. And I was completely blown away. I thought it was the most amazing thing ever.
And can you describe for us a little bit what the company's mission was and what they...
Yeah, it was to bring Native American dancing to a wider audience, to put Native American dancing in a theatrical setting, to share it with the world, to create a little bit better understanding about our culture through dance. So that was a very exciting time to get to go see the dance theater and go backstage and interview them. Got to interview the director, Hene Gigama, and it was all very exciting how it just kind of unfolded. And Hene had told me that, he said, we need another dancer. And I know you from Oklahoma, I know that you dance. He said, do you think you can get a buckskin dress, you know, and you can come on tour with us? So if that's all it takes to go on tour, I was like, yeah, sure. So I did actually find a friend who had a buckskin dress, and she was willing to loan it to me. She had toured years earlier. I can't remember if it was called USO or something, where they would go overseas and visit the troops. And she had gone. She used to sing, and so she said, "This dress has already been all over the place, so I'm going to let you take it and go ahead and go on tour." So I did. I joined the dance company, and probably 8 weeks later, I was in Paris with American Indian Dance Theater. So
Wow.
it was really exciting.
Now, when you were beginning to do this traveling with the company, were you consciously looking at fashion at all, or?
You know, I did start to notice fashion. I remember when I was on tour, going from country to country. It was almost like I was doing my own little trend forecasting thing. You know, it's like, okay, in that country they were wearing it this way, and in this country they're doing it this way. That's interesting, you know, and I think I like it better this way. But you know, before that, I don't remember really thinking about fashion a whole lot as like, oh, fashion is a career, or fashion is like got to be part of it. I know that when I was younger, my family, we used to drive a lot across the country. We'd go from California to Montana, or California to Oklahoma and back in a little Volkswagen Bug. So my brother and I got to share the back seat, and So a lot of times I would just spend my time in the car thinking about what I wanted to wear. And if I could have anything I could wanted to wear at all, I would wear a top that looked like this with a skirt that looked like this, and I would just in my head just to amuse myself. But it never occurred to me, why don't you make all that? Once in a while I'd say, Mom, can you make me a skirt like this? And we'd go to the store and look for a pattern, and she'd say, well, there's not a pattern like that. And we'd try, and that it just didn't get much further than that. But that was so long ago, before there was internet and social media and so many ways to connect and learn about things that New York and the fashion industry might have been on another planet for me. So I guess that's why it didn't really occur to me.
But you were kind of designing in your head.
But I was in my head, and not even really consciously
right.
recognizing that I was doing it. And maybe I should do that all the time. I just would do it to pass the time. I think I'd like an outfit like this, and that would be the end of it. So
now you had a kind of pivotal experience too while you were with the company, I guess, in terms of sewing your own clothing. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, I did. Like I said, I danced Southern cloth, and so that's what I started doing in the show. And at some point, I think one of the girls in the show left, and they said, we're not going to replace her, we're going to make you dance fancy shawl. And someone who had never been quite that aerobic in my whole life, I was like, okay. So again, I had to find an outfit. I had to borrow an outfit, and the girl who was leaving loaned me her outfit, actually. And I had to start working with the other girls, learning how to fancy shawl dance. And I had seen it. I got the gist of it, but making your feet and your body move like that was a whole different thing. And I had to practice and practice and practice. And we did a team dance routine in the show, and so I had to learn the team dance and memorize the team dance. And I made the rest of the girls just rehearse over and over and over, and I know they were just sick of me, like, again. But I finally did get the routine, and so I started fancy shawl dancing. But, there came a point in time where I realized that I was going to have to keep doing it. I wasn't just filling in for a little while. It was just going to stay that way. So I needed to get my own regalia. So when tour ended, I came home, and I got one quick lesson in flat stitch applique beadwork, literally one lesson. And I went home and set out about making leggings and moccasins and a beaded cape. And I needed some dresses and shawls. And remember, I didn't really sew. I didn't like that so much. So I went to my stepfather's relative, Adeline DuBois, and asked her if she could make something for me. And she gladly obliged and made me a couple of shawls and dresses. And someone else, I think, painted a shawl for me, painted some designs on a shawl. So I had something to wear, and it worked that way for a while until, when you dance 8 shows a week and you have like 3 outfits, you kind of want more. You're like, I'm tired of wearing the same clothes. So it was another break from tour, and a very good friend of mine, her name is Shelley Eagleman Bointy. We were traveling together to powwows in the summer, and she said, I'm going to make myself a new outfit. And I was like, whoa, all by yourself, And she was like, yeah, you should too. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do that. And she said, I want you to help me with that applique stuff, because you told me you know how to do that, so you need to help me show me how to do the applique part. So I thought, okay, I'll show you. And so I started helping her, and it seemed kind of fun picking out fabrics and colors. And so I just decided to pick out fabric too, and so we started making our own outfits. And we each made like a blouse and a skirt and a shawl. And I remember being kind of happy with myself when it was finished, because I literally thought, well, the sleeves are the same length, and I put it on and danced around and nothing fell off, so I guess it's okay. And so I was really kind of happy about that, and I kind of liked it. I liked the way it came out. I liked the way it looked, and so later on we ventured to do it again, and we made outfits again, and so I think that's where it first started. Later on, I made things on tours. We needed them, not a lot, but once in a while we'd need new things on tour. Things would need to be repaired, and we had a sewing machine that traveled with us, and so I would sew things once in a while on tour. And then I started making more regalia for myself, and started going to more powwows, dancing as a fancy shawl dancer when we were off tour. And all the girls in the company told me that's the only way you're going to get better, is to go dance that way at powwows, and just get used to it. So I did start doing that, and then, people would once in a while ask me, can you make something for me? I like your outfit. Can you make me something? And so it just kind of went from there. People would say, you should go to art markets. You should do art markets. You should sell your stuff. And so, it took a long time for me to build up to doing that. But I did try. I went to Santa Fe a few times, many years ago. I went to Santa Fe.
What year was that?
1 or 2 years. I can't remember exactly. I want to say it was like 2003, 2004, somewhere in there. And I went a couple times. I wasn't as focused as I am now. I was kind of like, here's some pillows, here's some men's vests, here's some skirts. I just made some things, So, but I went to Santa Fe, and I thought that was really exciting to be a part of that and to be there and to see all the other artists. It was, really kind of an honor to be there. And so.
How did you do that first year?
I did okay, I made backpacks too. I made backpacks with Applique, and those were a real hit. I sold out of those, so I did pretty good, and I enjoyed it. And but I came home and just I don't know. I don't know if I'm good enough to be there with everybody else. I just don't know, and I kind of just let it go again for a while. Went back to just my dancing and making things for me. And, along the way, people would still ask me to make them things, and I did, but I always was kind of hesitant about fitting people for things. I thought, well, I can go to the store and buy a pattern, and then I can put some applique on it, if you want a dress or a coat or whatever it is, but if that pattern size doesn't fit you correctly, I don't really know how to fix it. And so I was always kind of hesitant. I would almost not want people to ask me to make things sometimes because I think, oh gosh, what if I make it and it fits completely wrong? So I wasn't really confident in that area. And then that's why finally I decided to go back to school and learn pattern drafting and draping and learn about fit and how to fit things and learn how they did things in the industry. So that's why I went back to school.
So you came to OSU.
I did.
And you came in knowing that you wanted to design and basically work with native clothing, clothing.
Yeah, knowing that I wanted to kind of do what I had done all along, make clothing with native inspired or native motifs or designs, but just put them on more modern garments.
Right. Had you done anything like a fashion show per se? You'd been at markets, but you hadn't really done a fashion show per se.
I hadn't, other
prior to
than
that?
not as a designer. Modeling I did for Adeline, my friend of the family. I had done some modeling for her, and that was about my experience at fashion shows, was being just one of the models really. But so through school I did get to participate in the school fashion show, and then most recently the OSU Museum of Art's fashion show.
Right.
So yeah, gradually getting a little bit of that experience. We did have a class at school about working in fashion shows and producing fashion shows, but it was offered late during the evening, during the middle of the week, and it just didn't fit in my schedule with work and my 2-hour drive home from school every day. So I didn't get to take that class, although I wanted to. So I haven't learned as much about fashion shows probably as I need to yet.
What was a class that you did get to take that you really enjoyed, that was kind of a standout class?
Oh my gosh, there was lots of things. I think that Textile Surface Design is the name of the class. I think that was one of my favorite classes because we learned how to do a lot of different treatments to fabric. We learned how to dye fabric, we learned how to do batik, we learned how to do shibori, which is a Japanese dyeing technique. We learned how to do hand embroidery. I learned how to do things like crochet and knit. Everyone had to learn how to bead, but I already aced that part, so so it was real interesting to learn about all the different things you can do with fabric. Besides just go purchase some fabric off the shelf, you can create your own fabric. So I enjoyed that class. And the other two that were my really big favorites probably were draping and flat pattern, which is what I actually intended to go to school for anyway. I called the school and I said, I already know how to sew and I just really want to learn draping. And can I just take draping? And no, you have to take everything that comes before it, because it all leads up to it, and one comes before the other, and you can't have draping until you have everything else. So that's how I ended up going to school, but it was worth it.
Well, and you have this great background that you brought in because you had all the business, which is an important part of that. How have your thoughts about marketing your work since you graduated? How have your thoughts about the business side and marketing your work evolved?
Well, it's, kind of just like trial by fire, sort of. I did have business courses a long, long time ago, and probably marketing and advertising were some that I didn't pay attention in as much. So, and I think honestly, advertising and marketing has changed so much from when I was in school in the 80s. Studying those things, that it's still just a learning process as I go. I'm excited to have a website. I do have.
How long have you had your website?
I do have a domain name, and it's just got kind of like a placeholder or something, if you will. It's got a little slideshow on it now, and it just says coming soon. But the website is LA, which is for my initials, Leslie Ann. It's ladeerapparel.com. So I decided to name my business LA Deer because someone already purchased the domain name Leslie Deer out from under me. So
Oh my goodness.
I just switched it to LA Deer. So just my
That's
initials.
kind of nice. It brings up your California background a little too.
Yeah.
So what are some important venues for selling your work right now?
Right now, I'm focusing on selling at Native American art markets. I'm just trying to kind of get my name out there and get some visibility. So I have been to Santa Fe Art Market this past year in 2016.
How is that different?
That was very different for me because this time when I went, I was a lot more focused. I'm pretty much focused on women's wear right now. And I am more focused on using my Southeastern heritage, the Southeastern motifs, and I really kind of feel like it's part of my journey to take those motifs, to reach back and bring them forward from so long ago, just so that they're not forgotten. They're just so beautiful, and they're not, you don't see them as often as you see a lot of different regional type designs. And so I just kind of try and use them and make them a little more modern. So I am more focused in what I'm doing. The market seems like it has doubled in size since I was there, so many years ago. Maybe it hasn't, but it just feels so much bigger. I was, treated very well by all the people passing by, Men would even walk by, which was surprising to me. Gentlemen would come by and say, "That's a really nice dress. I would buy that for my wife." And, they'd come up and they would touch it and say, "It's really nice quality." And, and I thought, wow, if men even take time to notice
That's a real compliment.
this dress on the dress form, that's, I thought that was really special, because to me, I think that men don't really pay that much attention. Maybe they do, but, I just imagine that they don't. So that made me feel really good. I got a lot of positive encouragement. A lot of people told me this is different than everything else. Never seen anything like this. Keep doing what you're doing. And so it really, really kind of motivated me. It made me feel really good, and it made me feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be finally. All that time I didn't know where I was going, what I was going to be doing. I was just kind of drifting along and doing whatever came my way, and that was all fine and good. It turned out very well. 12 years touring the world with American Indian Dance Theater is nothing to complain about. So, I finally feel like I am where I'm supposed to be right now. So Santa Fe was wonderful. I'm getting ready to go to the Heard Museum next month out in Phoenix, and I have applied to more art markets for 2017 and am still applying. So that's my primary way of marketing and putting my stuff out there right now. I hope to have the website up in another month or two. I'm planning to make very limited editions of the garments that I make. I don't want to mass produce anything. Every garment that I sell is made by me, pretty much from start to finish. I cut each one out myself. I sew all the designs on them. I assemble them. And I am just now starting to work with a lady who is going to help me just with hand finishing, just tacking the lining to the zipper and doing the hems. But I pretty much do it all myself, so The dresses, I think, are really kind of so unique in a way, and it's like if you have too many of them, they just lose their specialness. So, and I know that women don't like to go anywhere and run into someone wearing the same thing. So really what I do is very limited. I buy a certain amount of fabric for a certain dress, and when that fabric's gone, I can maybe make, 6, 8, maybe 10 of that dress, and when it's gone, then that dress is retired, and on to something else. So
Wow, that's
just kind of see how it goes.
very unique. when the fabric's sold and then the pattern is discontinued, basically.
Yeah, I don't mind using the same style of a dress, I have a dress that I made that I took to Santa Fe, and it had box pleats in the front on the skirt half of the dress, and it was very popular. Everybody loved that dress. And so it's also expensive to have your patterns graded. That's the only thing that I don't do myself, because it's very time consuming to do by hand, when there are people and software and equipment that can do it with a matter of a few clicks. So I send my patterns off. I make the basics size 6 pattern, and then I send them off to be graded. So that's kind of expensive, and so also to help me save money in the beginning, I kind of recycle those same styles. I'll use the same dress but put something completely different on it. It was a sleeveless dress, and now it's a cap sleeve dress. So I do try to make that stretch a little bit, but as far as the designs and motifs that I put on it, they're different, and the color stories are all completely different. So yeah, I try to make it stretch, but try to make it different at the same time.
Right. And by grading, you mean that they're actually printing out something like a blueprint?
Right,
something
grading
like a
is
dress
actually
pattern.
the pattern sizing. Yeah, if you
They're
ever
gonna
look at a commercial, a store-bought
size
pattern,
them.
and
Okay.
it just goes out, it graduates out like a ripple almost in
Right.
different sizes. That's what grading is. Grading
Okay.
is going from one size to the next. Sorry, using industry
okay.
terminology.
That's
And I try to practice my industry terminology too as much as possible. We were taught, how to use all these industry terms in school, and we had to talk that way in school. And so I try to keep up with it in case when I actually ever do have to interact with what I call real professional, like the graders that grade my patterns, I have to know their terminology and talk in their terms. So I try to remember that, but I forget not everybody knows some of those words.
Tell us a little bit about the fashion show that just happened, how the idea for it came about.
Yeah, that was really exciting. The senior advanced apparel design class at OSU does a collection as a group, inspired by whatever the exhibit is that's going on at the OSU Museum of Art at that point in time. When I was a senior, there was a pop art exhibit going on there, and that was what we used in my class. But this class, the exhibit was about Native American creation stories. So that class was challenged with designing a collection based on what they learned at the museum about Native American creation. And I know in today's day and time with appropriation and a very sensitive subject, that some of those students were really concerned about, what they were going to make. They didn't want to offend anybody. They didn't want to do anything wrong. And so I really thought that the idea they came up with was very unique. They took the concept of rebirth and repurposing and reusing materials to design their collection, which was really beautiful. The professor of that class, Dr. Mary Rupert Stroescu, was also my professor when I was there. And I still actually go to her from time to time when I need help with something, like if I cannot figure out how to do something in a pattern or how to put something together. Sometimes I will call on Dr. Mary. And so I happened to be up there visiting her, and I think maybe she also had me come talk to the senior class. But she said, we only have 5 senior students for this fashion show, so it's going to be a very short fashion show. She said, so why don't you bring some of your garments and come up and show after the students? And, I always think that every time you're presented with something, it's an opportunity, and you can, make the most of it or let it slip away. And so even though I didn't have a lot to show at that time, coming back from Santa Fe and after also Cherokee Art Market and making some one-off garments for clients, I didn't have a lot, but I said, yeah, okay, sure. So here it was, January, trying to get ready for the show, and I was trying to get things together. So I didn't have a lot to show. I only had 5 things to show myself, but I still saw it as an opportunity not to be missed, and I'm so glad I did. Again, it was more experience for me, and an opportunity to put my name and my garments in front of more people. So I was really excited for that opportunity.
It was a great show. They had a really good turnout. It seems to me like as a fashion designer, you sort of have 2 issues going on. And one is just stereotypes of Native women, including, what the mainstream media has presented as representing traditional clothing, whether it's back then or now. But then you also have the mainstream culture, which, and I think a lot of the fashion industry does, still really commodify and objectify women's bodies. Mm-hmm. And I wonder how you design with those things in mind.
As far as the garments that I make and the way that they fit or show a woman's body, I just like to say that I design garments that I would like to wear myself. I know that you can't target everybody when you're designing clothing. Not everybody is your market, and so I thought that I would like to see more clothes that I would like to wear. Women with my silhouette or my shape, and so that's what I design with in mind as far as the way my garments are, or the way that they fit, or how revealing or not revealing they are, is just based on something that I think that I would wear or that I wouldn't wear. And as far as the stereotypes and the way that people think Native people's clothes should look, I honestly try not to think about those things so much. I sometimes find myself really kind of just closing myself off from all of that, from social media and everything, just to focus on what I want to do and do what I want to do without letting any of that even into my head. Mm-hmm. So I guess really I kind of do what I want to do and make things that I think that I would like to wear. I think about, they teach us, you've got to know who your client is, who are you designing for, what does she do, what does she wear, where does she go, where does she work, all of this. And I just think, well, I've done a lot of different things and I do a lot of different things still. And, I like to wear nice things some days, and other days I'm just wearing my jeans. So I want things to wear for those nice days. And so that's kind of how I design. Right or wrong, that's what I do.
That's beautifully. What's your favorite clothing item to make?
Gosh, well, there are things I like to make and there are things I don't want to make because they're a lot of work.
Those, I guess.
I make dresses pretty much because I like those. Those are fun. I enjoy that. I also like to make outerwear. I don't do it a lot, like jackets and coats and things like that, just because all of the work involved. Sometimes with some of those outerwear garments, the time it takes to build and construct them, and then you're looking at the shoulders, and the shoulder pads are different areas, to the lapels and the collars and under collars, and it's just a lot of work. And for me as one person, to do them and make several of them, it right now doesn't appeal to me. Maybe as I grow and get a little bit bigger, maybe if I have help in construction with putting things together, I might look at doing more of those things. But to me right now, they're just like so time consuming that I stay away from them. So I would say, I guess I like to do just dresses pretty much. I like to do dance regalia too.
Mm-hmm. Have you taken your fashion work overseas?
As far as the things that I'm designing now and the things that I'm showing at art markets, I have not. Only in terms of just the regalia that I wore mostly with the dance company is pretty much the only thing that I have taken, because honestly I don't think I've been out of the country in like the last, well, I was when I was in school. I went to Azerbaijan just almost 2 years ago.
Oh, with the design class? Right?
No, actually for the U.S. Embassy.
Okay.
We went to the U.S. Embassy in Azerbaijan, invited us to come and dance. I still dance sometimes with a dance group, and we went over there for that. And that reminds me that I actually purchased all of my fabric for my senior collection at school in Azerbaijan.
Wow.
So all of those garments were made with fabric I purchased over there and lugged back in my suitcase. But no, I haven't taken anything overseas yet.
Do you have a couple of different sewing machines, or?
I do, from the very inexpensive $99 variety. Those are actually my favorites for doing applique, for doing the zigzag stitch, and for doing buttonholes. I have a very old, probably 25-year-old Singer sewing machine that is my favorite, but I've used it so much and had it repaired so much that the zigzag stitch skips sometimes, which is real frustrating to me. So thus the $99 replacements that work really well. And I also have industrial sewing machines. I have a Juki lock stitch industrial machine with the motor on it that does, I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000 stitches a minute. And then I also have a Juki overedge machine to finish the raw edges. So I'm very fortunate to have both of those. I was a First People's Fund Artist in Business Leadership Fellow last year and received a grant, and that helped me to purchase some of my equipment. First People's Fund is out of Rapid City, and so they helped with that. So I'm very grateful to them. I'm very fortunate to have the equipment that I do, and I'm always looking to get more.
What is your favorite fabric to work with?
I actually like to use a lot of natural fibers and fabrics. I like to use wool. A lot of the dresses I make are out of wool crepe or wool gabardine. Even for summertime sleeveless dresses and things, I prefer the wool. They're lightweight. They wear well. They have a nice hand and a nice drape to them. They take applique very well. And they tend to be kind of, I don't know, like forgiving. Like they will bend and move and stretch and grow with you. So I like those fibers. I also like silks. I like organic cottons, except for sometimes I don't like fabric that wrinkles so much. So sometimes that kind of narrows it down. For the applique part, I do use actually satin, and it's acetate satin, which is getting harder and harder to find these days. But I like the sheen on it, and that's what I learned to work with many, many years ago from my Sack and Fox teachers, and so that's what I still use today.
Can you explain for us the difference, too, between applique and ribbon work?
Yeah, the terms I think are sometimes used interchangeably. I know that there is a type of ribbon work that some tribes use where they actually use grosgrain ribbon and they clip the ribbons and press them under and then stitch them down, which may be a more true use of the term ribbon work. But applique that I learned from my teachers actually is cutting out fabric and either pinning it, or nowadays sometimes we fuse it to the underlying fabric and then stitch it down with a zigzag stitch on the sewing machine. Sometimes that's also done by hand. My teachers told me that they used to do it all by hand. They would have to pin their design in place and then hand stitch all the way around it with a little, like almost like a cross stitch. So I think that the term ribbon work is applied to that. Sometimes they do a lot of symmetrical designs and do them in strips, and maybe that's where the term ribbon work comes in. But I think that the terms can be interchangeable or more specific to the other kind of ribbon work.
How has your palette of colors or designs kind of changed since you graduated?
I don't know that it has changed since I graduated. I have always gravitated toward really bright colors. I also like the color combination of black and white together. I like black and white, and I like lots of bright colors. I'm not much of a pastel person at all. They might be growing on me a little bit, but I just like the bright, bold colors, lots of reds and lots of blues and royal purples and just everything really bright, really saturated, and really vibrant. I like that color to just grab your eyeballs.
Do you make any accessories right now?
I do occasionally. When I made my senior collection in school, I made beaded cuffs for all of the models to wear with the dresses. It was kind of carryover from another project I did, and it was kind of an inspiration about the Wonder Woman pose. Have you heard of the Wonder Woman pose?
No.
There is a TED Talk, and I can't think of the professor's name, but she says basically that if you stand in the Wonder Woman stance or pose, with your hands on your hips, for 2 minutes, it actually changes your body chemistry and gives you more confidence. And so there was another assignment in one of my classes that we had to design for, and it was in conjunction with domestic violence awareness. And we had to listen to domestic violence and use the emotions and feelings and what we learned from that lecture to design a garment. And the whole time I just kept thinking that there was, a contrast of, the oppressor and the person being oppressed, of, control and someone just wanting to be free. So I designed a garment, and I just thought, whoever it is that is experiencing, domestic violence, they just need to practice the Wonder Woman pose. And, maybe it would be helpful to them. And so I made these cuffs for my garment that I made, and my model, she posed like Wonder Woman, and she looked like Wonder Woman. She was awesome.
That's
cool. So it was kind of a carryover from that. It was still like I was still stuck on the Wonder Woman pose thing, so I beaded all these cuffs for my models to wear with their dresses. So in that case, I did make accessories, and I did once start beading a Peter Pan collar to go on a dress. And I haven't quite finished that yet, so it's a half-finished project. And for the collection that we just showed up at the OSU Museum, some friends of mine made bracelets for me. They strung beads on memory wire in their spiral bracelets. And so I had a little bit of input in that, but that was something that they volunteered to do for me, and it was really great. So occasionally I do make accessories like that, just not as often.
Mm-hmm.
When I have time. Maybe someday I'll have more time in the future.
With some more help.
Right.
Is there something you'd like to try design-wise or technique-wise that you haven't been able to do yet?
Oh my gosh, I think there's a million things I'd like to try. I'd like to experiment with dyeing fabrics and just doing a lot of different color stories and doing things that are a little more, I don't know, not so classic in silhouette as far as the garments I make. I think I was explaining to someone one day that a lot of times when I used to put my applique on things that were not my dance clothes, but if I was making something just for me to wear and I wanted to put applique on it, I looked for garments that I could make that didn't have a lot of seams, that didn't have a lot of busy work in them, so that I could put my applique there. So I think over time my brain is just trained to create garments that have real simple lines that are more or less like classic silhouettes, so that I can adorn them with this applique. So sometimes I always think that when I have more time, I would like to experiment more. I'd like to drape more and do things that are not so classic and silhouette, things that are a little bit different, experiment more. I would like to also work on trying to be more sustainable. I try to be very conscious now when I buy fabric and when I make a garment to use all the scraps, and I save all my scraps to use in something else so that they're not just tossed out and put in a discard pile somewhere. So I would like to work on ways to be more sustainable and be able to work on even making patterns that utilize more fabric and eliminate waste, or garments that are convertible, that can turn into something else. I designed a garment in school that started out as an overcoat that turned into a dress that turned into a vest, so that you're using it for more than one lifetime. And so I would like to do more of that when I have more time.
Right. Because you also, of course, are working here at the Cultural Center Museum.
Right, a full-time job.
Yes, and teach sewing classes.
I do, yeah. I teach regalia classes. We call it regalia classes just because everybody wants to make something different, and they're always wanting to make parts of their regalia, and not everyone wants to make the same thing. So I work one-on-one. It's just kind of an open class, and people come, and I work one-on-one with them, whether I need to help them make a pattern for a skirt or a blouse, or just tell them what materials they need to buy or how much they need to buy, or show them how to tie fringe, or show them how to do applique. So I do teach class here at the Citizen Potawatomi Cultural Heritage Center. And I'm always looking to teach more people. Sometimes we have youth that come in. I've taught kids as young as I think 9 years old how to sew and how to make applique. So it's a lot of fun. It's a very rewarding experience, and it's fun to see what other people create. So I really enjoy it. They broaden my horizons sometimes, because I always think, well, those aren't my kind of colors, but when they make it, it comes out really beautiful. So I learn a lot from them.
Mm-hmm. Do you do any color sketches before you work on a piece?
I do sometimes, and in school we always had to do that. We always had to sketch a garment before we created it. And it is helpful to do that, to sketch something out, because as you're making a pattern, you might get to a point and say, well, does the dart go here, or is the applique going to go there? And if it's all in your head, then you're just kind of making it up as you go along. But if you do have a sketch, then you can just refer back to your sketch and say, no, it clearly goes center front, halfway down the skirt, or wherever it goes. So it does help to do that. A lot of times I'll just do them in pencil and not color them, just because, again, I always feel like I'm rushing.
Right.
But yeah, I do like to do sketches. And I think, too, it helps a lot when you sketch, because you have a great idea in your mind. It looks wonderful. And when you go to sketch it all out and have to actually put everything in proportion, you can see that doesn't look so great after all. Maybe I need to move it this way, or adjust something here and there. So it does help a lot to do that.
How did you come up with your tag? I assume you've got tags for your work. How did you come up with the design for that?
My label that goes inside my
Yeah.
garments, it's pretty simple. It just says L.A. Deer, and I think it says Holdenville, Oklahoma,
Okay.
which is where I live now. But again, it's just back to, I just made a decision to name my business L.A. Deer as opposed to Leslie Deer, all because the domain name Leslie Deer was taken. So it's simply L space A space DEER. And it's pretty simple. I went to have some labels made, and you're allowed, like so many lines to print or text, and so it just came about to be really simple. I'm still trying to work on a logo for my business, and I tried to work on it once before, and I just wasn't satisfied with anything, and so I decided to put it aside, and I feel like I'll know it when I have it. When I come up with it, I'll know it, and
Right.
until then, I'm just not going to worry about it. So everything's pretty black and white blend. It just says L.A. Deer for the time being.
So, what's your creative process once you get an idea? Take us through the steps.
Oh my gosh, it's different all the time, and I get inspiration everywhere. Sometimes it's when I'm asleep and I'll wake up and go, oh wow, that's a cool idea. Sometimes it's when I'm driving, I'll remember something from my past, or something when I was traveling. The designs on the cathedrals over in Europe, something like that. Or there's a lot of different things that influence me, color combinations. And so when I get an idea, I'll stop and try to just at least sketch it down as soon as I have that idea. But I'm one of those people that's like really slow. I want to think about it and think about every option and every different way it could go before I finally decide how I want to do it. And that's so frustrating sometimes. I'm trying to really work on getting better about making decisions. But, I'll sketch it and say, well, what if I put it over here? What if I put the design over there? What if I took the sleeve off? Or what if I made a half sleeve? Or, so there's just so much what ifs. It drives me crazy sometimes. But sometimes I'll just sketch down designs for the motifs. Sometimes I'll get an idea for a silhouette. Sometimes I just think I want movement, so I'll make circle skirts and skirts that have an A-line or a pleat in them, so that you can see the movement when the wearer walks in them. So then I go back and forth from this silhouette, which of these designs that I sketch, these motifs, would look good on which silhouette. And, I try to work on my color stories, and I try to, actually, to the ability that I can, research trend forecasting and colors for the next season and the next season and the next season, and try and base my colors based on those, while also keeping my bright color choices front and center. I'll pick out the brightest colors of the whole color story and choose those for my colors. So it's just kind of all over the place, really. I do a lot of sketching, and I drive a lot, so I think a lot when I'm driving. And then when I stop somewhere, I'll sketch something and then go from there.
You keep them in a notebook?
I do, yeah. I have several notebooks. Yeah. There's some in my car and some in my bedroom, and they're everywhere. So, yeah, and I have to compile them all and get them all together and flip all the pages open when I'm trying to really work on something.
And then in terms of your Southeastern designs, for your research, draw from sun circles or some of the...
I have a lot of those books, Sun Circles and several others. I have been to several of the mound sites down in Georgia and Alabama, and talked to people. I've tried to talk to a lot of elders. I've tried to ask a lot of people. I've tried to ask other artists. And it is hard sometimes. I don't know if people truly don't know any more than I do, or they just don't want to share it. But sometimes people say, I have the same books you do. I really can't tell you anything new, and I think, gosh, okay. So I keep trying, and I'm always trying to seek out people to learn more, because, I use a very select, limited amount of the motifs that are in some of those books right now, because I don't want to use anything if I don't understand it. If I don't know what it's saying, what it represents, what it means, I don't want to use it. So the ones that I do use, I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of, and I know what they're saying. And so I kind of think that sometimes, too, my garments tell a story, by the motifs on them. This is what they're telling you. But I'm always looking at those designs, and sometimes I take them pretty literally and use them, and sometimes I try to kind of change them up a little bit. I just look at them all and think they're so beautiful. They just, I don't know, it just makes my heart beat faster when I look at them, and I want to use so many of them, but I want to make sure I know what I'm doing with them and what they mean. So I am limited, but I'm always looking for new information, more sources. I'm still chasing down people and trying to convince people to help me sometimes.
Well, just looking back so far over your design career, which has been relatively short.
Yes.
But you're going great guns. What was a fork in the road where you sort of could have gone this different direction and you ended up going this one?
Let's see. Gosh. I don't know. Sometimes every day I think it's a fork in the road, whether to keep going or just to stop altogether, because it's really challenging sometimes to work a full-time job, to commute, and to find time to take care of your family. I have a husband, and I have 6 dogs, and sometimes it's a sacrifice between spending time with them or working on my design work. So I think that sometimes, to me, that seems like a fork in the road. Sometimes I think, should I just not even do this, because it's just so much sometimes. I lose so much sleep just trying to get things done. But I think that the side of doing it always wins out somehow. I have this quote on my phone. It says, never, 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 never give up. And so I just always look at that and just keep on going. Even when I think I'm not going to get this done by the deadline, I'm not going to have this ready to submit to the juried art market, I just keep going, and it all works out. It works out wonderfully, and I feel like it works out exactly as it's meant to. So I was working on a garment to submit to the juried art market at Santa Fe, and I stayed up so late sewing for so many days, and I was going to have to drive myself to Santa Fe, 8-hour drive, and I really didn't feel like I could drive 8 hours by the time it was time to leave. So I decided not to. And I took an extra day just to stay home and sleep, just to get out there in time for the art market. And so I took that garment with me, but it just was there on my rack, and it was different from the rest of my collection because it was beaded. It was a very special piece, and so I was kind of disappointed I didn't get to put anything in the juried art competition. But I was like, well, you know, you're just learning as you go here, so you'll know next year. Start earlier. So I went to another art market after that. I went to the Cherokee Art Market a couple months later. And someone was there from the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian. And they came and asked me about that dress that I didn't get to submit at Santa Fe, and the inspiration behind it. And it was inspired by 1800s crepe bandolier bags. And he said, I really like the idea of it. I really like that dress, and I think we'd be interested in purchasing it. So that dress
Your first museum sale
is now at the Smithsonian. So that's really, really exciting. So it's things like that that kind of tell me, don't quit.
Right. It was meant to be there. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about or anything you'd like to add before we look at your work?
Gosh. I don't know. I told you I could talk all day, so like really don't give me free rein. No. I will go off on one tangent or another, but gosh, I think you had just lots of good questions there. Lots of stuff to think about. So.
Well, great. Well, we'll pause it a minute and
Okay.
we'll just talk about the clothing real quickly.
So this is a jumpsuit that I made while I was still in school. I think this was in my advanced apparel design class. And this jumpsuit was inspired by an exhibit at the OSU Museum of Art. There was a pop art exhibit there at the time, and my class had a art history professor give us a lecture on pop art, and I learned that text was a very common aspect of pop art, and so I thought it would be fun to put text into my garment somehow, and I knew that pop art was also a lot of times a social commentary, so I just thought I would make this garment just to tell a little bit about myself, kind of like an introduction to myself. So it's not real obvious when you look at it at first, but I actually started, I made this fabric, I printed this fabric, I had this fabric printed, but I designed the artwork for it. So I started with a profile photo of myself in my dance regalia. And so I have plumes on the side of my head, and those plumes have little white tips hanging off from them. So if you look down at the bottom of the garment, I don't know if you can really tell, but there is my profile down there.
Right.
There's my chin and my mouth, and then part of my nose, and then the eagle plumes are kind of hanging down over it, and there's the white tips down there on the plume. And then I also just flipped it upside down, so again, here's my chin, my mouth, and my nose, and then the eagle plumes. And so I decided to fill those, the white spot in those plumes with some text. And being a child of the 60s and growing up out in the Bay Area and participating in the occupation of Alcatraz, I decided to put the Proclamation of Alcatraz as the text in my plumes. And so I made some of the text red too, and those are kind of some of the points that are really salient to me that stood out, you know. And it talks about we offer you $1.24 in glass beads, you know, for this 16 acres, which is more than you paid for Manhattan, you know, so many years ago. And I just really thought that that was special, and that's just a part of me growing up. Being out there on Alcatraz is something that I will always remember and has always kind of shaped my life. So I decided to put that in there, and I also I had heart earrings on, shell heart earrings in the photo, and so I just filled my hearts with kind of like flowers and kind of like flower power imagery, just again from being back in the 60s, and it was something I used to really love, was all of that flower power kind of pop art, that kind of artwork. So
Right.
this is a jumpsuit that has a keyhole in the back, and it has ties in the back. It has more of the flower power imagery on it, and it is also fully lined, I might add. I'm just proud to say I line all my garments. So it's fully lined, and it is 100% organic cotton. It's one of my favorite things just because it's a little bit about me.
Right. It's a cool piece.
So this dress is one of my most recent dresses, and it also kind of, I think of it as like a medicine dress. And I got the idea off of bandolier bags when I was doing some research on southeastern bandolier bags, and I really liked the straps on bandolier bags, and I noticed that each side of the strap was different. And in some of my research, I understood that some of the designs on the straps might have been to represent medicines or herbs or things that were important to the person that wore that bag. That was their own special things. And so to me, they kind of look like really abstract, curvilinear, like floral, botanical type designs. And so I just kind of sketched something out that looked like little flowers or, buds or, again, herbal, medicinal type plants, and just put my bright colors to it. So, and I also put the sun circle design in the middle. That is one of my favorite southeastern designs, and that sun circle design, which represents the sun, it represents the four directions, and it represents the world. So then it was just a matter of finding a way to put all of those aspects onto one garment in a way that, was visually eye-catching. So I decided to put it in the pleats.
Yes.
So I thought that maybe you could notice it when someone walks. So this one is another new dress that I made. The style I've actually recycled from a previous collection. And I've just added some cap sleeves to it. I talked about trying to stretch my patterns. This was a dress that was sleeveless with box pleats in the front. And I added a sleeve to it, a little cap sleeve, and I changed the applique designs on it. So again, just trying to use some of the designs that I know and that I like. I've got the serpent design on the bottom, which represents the underworld. And then there is the spiral design in the center, which represents the creator's breath, because, the creator breathes life into all of us. That's one of my very favorite designs. And I also really like curvilinear lines. It's one of my favorite things. And then the top design is the eagle wings, representing the world above us. So that's what that was meant to represent. And again, because I like the curvilinear, I just kind of added it to the neckline. And most of the design is kind of on the back. You can see a little bit better in the back than in the front.
Right.
So I'm always looking for different ways to add some of the applique to it, rather than just, parking it front and center sometimes.
Right, right. That's beautiful.
And then this one is a little bit simpler, but I still really like this. This is, again, the creator's breath and the sun circle design. And this is a full circle skirt. I think it's over 3 yards around the circumference at the hem of the skirt. So this design goes on and on and on for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So it looks very simple, but yet it takes a lot of work to get all of that on there.
Right.
And again, this is like a 100% wool gabardine, and it's very light. I like the way that it drapes and the way that it hangs, the way that it fits when you put it on. And so that's why I like to use the natural fibers a lot. And that is the acetate satin again, that is machine appliqued on there. And all of my garments are lined. I think I said that
Just
already.
gorgeous. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Leslie.
Thank you. That was fun.